Well, thanks for joining our adventure today. I'm Dr. Russ, and if you're like me and you have a passion for air guns, you're going to enjoy our show today. We have over 1 million people from all over the planet visit us over the course of a year. They need information on springers, on piston guns, on brake barrels, on PCPs, and even the large bore air guns, and we do some reviews on all of them. Dr. Paula and I really considered kind of unbelievable that the whole world is kind of coming to this these videos and getting that type of information. There's a small circle on your screen that has my picture in it, but if you click it, you're going to go ahead and hit our whole channel, which has just about 100 videos on it now, as we come up on our 3rd anniversary. And hopefully you'll find the gun, and if not, this coming 12 months some more guns will be reviewed and you'll find just the right video on the topic you want. Today we're going to get a little sharper on the 10X Gamo series. Boy, there's a lot of confusion on it. 3 different generations of air guns. And as you can see from the intro videos, we had quite a shoot 'em up show for you. But we've got some wind blowing. It comes in gust, and it not only takes a pellet off course, but they do something else, and that is that they wreak havoc with our audio portion of our videos, and I know that you want to hear us and whatever we might say. So I think what we're going to do is hold off on these targets till tomorrow, maybe the next day, and wait till the wind calms down, and we'll get on into this comparison on Gamo 10X guns. And a second video is coming. I don't know if you realize it, but the 3 big companies, Gamo, Crosman, and Hatsan, they're the 3 largest global airgun manufacturers. Well, these other 2, Crosman and Hatsan, they decided to get into some 10X guns too, except they made some of them even in a 12X with a magazine, and all you do is pump it and you keep shooting. They kind of decided to do some one-upmanship on Gamo, and in some cases they came in behind Gamo. We're going to cover all of that in our comparisons here in a minute. I had some shave cream cans down there with some big red Christmas candles, and as the pellet would go through them, it would hit the gas exploding, and the foam would hit that candle and create an explosion. I'm told. We'll find out when we do the shooting. You'll see the bell that I've shot a dozen times on videos at 85 yards. You can hear that gong from here, and you know it got hit. But we'll be covering, I think, the rest of this video inside. I do have a couple of concerns. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. If you enjoy the passion that we have. If you have any questions at the conclusion, put them in the comments section. I'll answer them, or I'll get somebody who can answer them. And if you want to be assured that you're going to get the next videos that are coming, and we've got some pretty good ones coming, you'll want to subscribe. So be sure and do that. Lastly, you can help me with a little problem that Dr. Paula has brought to my attention. I've enjoyed these videos for 3 years. I work for free. I've never taken $1. There's no dollars to be taken. Those ads that's so easy to skip over pay us, you know, 3, 4, 5 cents a piece, depending on how long they are, and well, it's awfully easy just to say skip over them. But they total about a $200 a month income $200 a month. But over the course of a month, we do 3 videos. And we spend about $1,000. And Dr. Paula is the one who writes the checks for that 800 that isn't there, and she's been doing it for 3 years. So what am I saying? You can help me with her if you just play a few of those videos for us. And look the other way if you like, but just play a few so that maybe those nickels will be $300 or $400. Let's get in on that comparison that I was just talking about. Okay, I thought I'd be doing this little bit of classroom instruction outside, but the wind just got too big, especially for our mic. We did a lot of research so that we might come up with the Gamo 10X comparisons. Generation 1, Generation 2, Generation 3. We wanted to talk about all the different models, whether they have adjustable triggers, scope, rail, safety, adjustable power, weight, sling, magazine capacity, and the price of a magazine, the purpose of this gun, the trigger of this gun, the fixed sights. And then we're going to see if it had a suppressor or a moderated barrel, and more important, what's the doggone loudness level of these guns? What does it take to cock it? What kind of a piston is in it? And if we're shooting alloy pellets, what kind of feet per second do we get? And then what about lead pellets? What about the length of the barrel? And what type of barrel it is? And does the gun shoot pellets or slugs or both? Very important is what warranty comes with the gun and what is the price. Don't let this chart scare you away. I'm going to make it as simple as possible. And then next week we're going to compare the Hatsan and the Crosman multi-shot air guns as well, so that you've got all the facts. Because you see, a number of weeks ago, I came up with 75 deal breakers. Things that you should check off before you go buy any brand of gun, and highlight in yellow the ones that really make a difference. For example, is it available as a left-handed shooter as well as right-hand? For some southpaws, that would be pretty important. These are still available when you order a couple of our logo stickers that can be put on guns or lockers or whatever you like. We're even going to be talking about the different magazines and of course the guns. All of that is going to be covered in this so that you can say, you know, I think for me that's the gun, and maybe this is a different gun for somebody else. Attention to detail has been one of my traits ever since Vietnam. I didn't want to lose any men in the jungle just because we were missing something just wasn't right. Here's a statue, a piece of art that I got at a flea market a couple of weeks back, and it shows everything going wrong for this Roman soldier. He's got a chariot here that's pulled by 4 horses. 2 are down and 2 are still up, and things are obviously getting real bad for him on an important day, whether it be a parade or a war or whatever. And I find that the same thing can happen with air guns. If we don't pay some attention to detail, we can see our day of hunting or target practicing go bad. Okay, I'm going to make this research get real simple. Let's just stay with this blue area, if you will. It doesn't matter if we're talking about generation 1, 2, or 3. Many of these answers have stayed the same. Does it have an adjustable trigger? No, on generation 1. It has an SAT, a smooth action trigger, but it doesn't have a custom adjustment trigger. So Generation 2 had that, and Generation 3 had that as well. In Generation 1, we had a fixed scope that was 4 power and 32 millimeter at the end, and the rail was 11 millimeter, and it was made of the same poly material that the gun stock was made of. When we get over to Generation 2, we pick up a 3x9 variable with a 40 millimeter lens, objective lens on the end, that lets in more light. We're sticking with the 11 millimeter rail, and I'm not sure what it was made of, but I did determine that in Generation 3, that rail was aluminum. And I can tell you, I've cracked a rail before because it was polyurethane versus aluminum. The 3x9x42 scope is better. It has a bigger objective lens. It's only available on the Magnum. Let's continue in this blue section. Was there an adjustable power so we can change the power? And the answer is no, no, no. The only way we can adjust the power is getting heavier pellets, heavier slugs, and that brings the velocity down. The safety is manual. It's fixed. Turn it on or turn it off. Turn it on or turn it off. And that's the same here on Generation 3. I like that. I like the fact I can turn it on or off. Hatson is a gun that has an automatic safety. It turns on all the time, and just as you're trying to squeeze the trigger and you find out you can't, it's because that automatic safety went on, at least for me. That's a feature for me. It may not be a feature for you. Some of us are very concerned about the weight of the gun, and does it have sling swivels or connections to put a sling on the gun? Well, in Generation 1, they were just a little over 5 pounds, but there were no places for slings. The Whisper and the Maxim went up to 5.6 pounds, and the Fusion and the Magnum just a hair bigger, 5.8 in Generation 2. And then in Generation 3, a new gun was out, the Fusion at 5.8, and the Magnum went on up to 6.9 pounds of weight. Still very light, and lighter, as you'll see in our next video, than the Crosman or the Hatson. And no sling possible on these light guns. Perhaps they thought, well, the gun's so light we don't need slings, but slings make it handy for me going into the field because I want to take some other things. What is the magazine capacity? And what is the price of a magazine? Because you usually want to get 2 or 3 magazines after spending hundreds of dollars on the gun. Well, in every case, they hold 10 rounds, 10 rounds, 10 rounds. It doesn't matter if we're shooting 17 caliber or 22. But way back, once upon a time, with Generation 1, it was $15. In just a year, they jumped to 30. And the list price on a Magnum Generation 3 is now $45. Now they've had some trouble with their magazines, but my goodness, that's a pretty big jump, especially if you want to get 2 or 3 magazines over here. That costs you as much as $100. What's the purpose of these break barrel guns? Well, they say target, and they say small game, small game. Small game, even the Generation 3. That's pretty much the standard for 17 and 22 caliber. Now, I always have somebody write in and say they shot a deer at 100 yards, they shot it through the eye and killed it. I'm glad to hear it. But if you want good, humane harvesting of critters, you want to make sure that you get the right caliber, the right gun for what it is that you're going to hunt. Here was an interesting comparison. Are there fixed sights on these guns? No, it's not even possible. In Generation 1, that magazine sat straight up instead of laying down. It just wasn't even possible. It was in the way. The magazine was in the way of any fixed sights. But in Generation 2, along came towards the end of the Generation 2 a gun called the Fusion, and it did include fixed sights. Rather interesting. However, in Generation 2, and that's the biggest way you know Generation 2 and 3, is that the magazines lay down. So we are able to mount the scope lower. And with see-through sights, we can see these fixed sights as well. Even in Generation 3, only the Fusion allows for the sights being seen. Suppressor. Well, a suppressor is like a silencer on the end of the barrel. That makes the gun change its sound. Then there's a moderated barrel. That's an outer barrel over the small barrel. And we call that moderated. And then we get what's called the loudness level. Well, the Whisper and the Maxim, they had a moderated barrel. It was a fluted design, but it did moderate the sound. And the loudness level was dropped. We see that especially here when Generation 2 came out. With that, the Whisper was considered a 3 level or a medium, so was the Maxim. The Bone Collector was a 3. But that Fusion, it had the fixed sights. Well, it also has a moderated barrel, and it has a suppressor or silencer on the end. It received a score of 2. But the Magnum, which only has the suppressor on the end, a 2-chamber suppressor, it's back to a 3. And we see the same thing over here in Generation 3. Now, that suppressor on the Magnums is just 2 chambers. It's not an expensive suppressor at all, but it does knock the power, rather the sound, down to a 3. The Bone Collector, it has the moderator on the barrel. It's a 3. The Fusion has the moderator and the suppressor. The sound is a 2. And then the Maxim is a 3, and the Whisper's a 3. Let me remind you of what these guns look like. So here's a pretty good picture of the first generation Whisper. You can see that that sight is up high, and that requires high mounts on that scope. But it also has the fluted barrel and no suppressor on the end. And this gun was quite a bargain and made a lot of sales at just $149.95. In that same year, the Maxim came out. And the Maxim had the same barrel and the same high amount for the magazine as well as the scope. And this is what that Generation 1 Maxim looked like. It came out a little bit later in the year. They wanted, it was for about $200. They were trying to get dollar volume up on their sales. When we got to Generation 2, here's the Maxim, and you'll see that that magazine up near the forward end of the stock is laying down. Same fluted barrel. And now the scope can lay closer to the gun and is a little easier to sight in. But rather interestingly, in this same Generation 2, along came the Fusion. And it was late in the year, but here again was an area they wanted to up the price, and the Fusion was $285. And you can see it has the low, laying low magazine, but look at that barrel. We have a fluted barrel and we have a suppressor on the end. We have both. And so those people who are very, very interested in silence, perhaps that Fusion is the way for you to go. We have quite a bit of confusion in the marketplace with this name Whisper. Gamo loves the name Whisper. So do the people who buy it. So she starts to back out of this Generation 3 Whisper and brings out an Evo. Now, I thought maybe that was evolution. It was going to have a lot more new things on it. Actually, it's not. It is really a Whisper in disguise, but at a higher price. As a matter of fact, $220. Also, here's the Fusion in the 3i version, and it has the suppressor on the end, it has the moderated barrel in the middle, it has the lay-down magazine, and a low-mounted scope. Mr. Waddell, who has a number of videos on hunt videos, decided to come across from powder guns and into air guns and bring his famous name, the Bone Collector, over as well. And so in both the second generation and in the third generation, we have the only Swarm air rifle that has a wood stock. Is much heavier, but it has the fluted barrel, it has the lay-down magazine, and it's available for about $320. So we can see these prices have gone from $149 Whisper on into the 300s. Here's another $320 gun. Here's the Magnum, and it has the regular barrel with a suppressor at the end. It has the magazine lay down and the lower scope, and it has some pretty good statistics with it. Let me share those with you next. With each new generation of Gamo 10X Swarm air rifles, they love to advertise that the velocity has gone up, but that's not my concern. I like velocity between 850 and 1,000 feet per second. But for selling purposes, they like 1,300 and 1,600 feet per second. That seems to be what sells to this entry-level group of buyers. And we're not doing them a bit of favor with that. And yet we seem to get that with each new generation. Let me come back up here to the trigger for a moment. In the Whisper, it was a fixed trigger. 3.5 pounds of pressure, and finally the gun would go off. The Maxim, which came out a little later in the season, it had an adjustable trigger, and you had some ability to adjust it from 2.6 to 3.2. This trigger has stayed all the way out here for all the generations to come. The Whisper stayed fixed until finally we get out here. Even the Evolution, which is a very expensive Whisper, has this fixed trigger. Now, I talked about suppressors. Let's talk about cocking efforts for just a moment. Now, cocking is an interesting thing because it really has a lot to do with how long that barrel is when you bend it, and the hinge motion that allows you to break that barrel. Well, back in generation 1, the Whisper and the Maxim was 30 pounds. And that stayed in generation 2 as the Whisper, the Maxim, the Fusion, and even the Bone Collector all had 30 pounds. But the Magnum, Gamo says, is 41. I have a Magnum. I haven't checked it. I don't have a real ethical, honest way to check it. But there are people that have written to Gamo and said, it's 50 pounds. I'm not sure how they're coming to that conclusion, but that's a lot of pressure to cock that gun. And more pressure than you might want to overcome the ability that it has a magazine that has 10 pellets in it. So, back here in generation 3, the Bone Collector in generation 3 has a 41 pound, the Magnum has a 41, and the rest have 30s. I can tell you, even I have some trouble cocking that Magnum. Let's go over here to piston, the piston type. Well, with the Whisper and later in the year the Maxim, they called it an IGT trigger, and it was the best piston that they had at the time. But in Generation 2, the Fusion and the Magnum picked up something called an IGT Mach 1 with a 33 millimeter, and usually that's talking about a tube in it. So I assume that's a larger tube, or larger piston, while all the others kept that IGT. And then here in the third generation, we still have the bone collector and the Magnum, but the Fusion has picked it up too, an IGT Mach 1 with this 33 millimeter tube as the piston. The Whisper Maxim, they stuck with the regular IGT. I have seen in this research, it was kind of interesting to me, that I looked at a lot of guns showing up at a lot of locations. Pyramid Air Guns of Arizona, some stores, some closeout places, you name it. And an interesting thing took place. Now we see it here in Detroit with cars. Imagine that we have enough parts to make 9 million cars, identical. But we've got a few extra parts at the end. And what do we do with those? Well, they kind of blend them in with the next year's car, if possible. I think Gamo was doing it here with their guns. If they had a few extra parts, it went on the next gun, and so we saw some confusion. As if they needed any more confusion in making all of these air guns and all of these names, and putting Whisper's name in there and then taking the Whisper name out. But leaving some parts in. So I found some air guns that didn't quite make sense to me, but they made them anyway. Point is, buyer beware. Make sure you're getting what you think you're getting. Okay, so we know the piston type. Let's talk about velocity. Well, way back, Generation 1, when the Whisper and the Maxim came out, they were pushing that 17 caliber pellet out at 1,300 feet a second. Now the black is talking about 22 caliber. And the guns range, some said 975, some others said 1,000 feet per second. In Generation 2, that Evo came out just 1,000 feet per second, not even 1,300. But the Whisper, they kept 1,300. The Maxim 1,300. Fusion was shooting at 1,300. But that Maxim with that extra large piston was shooting 17 caliber pellets at 1,650 feet per second. Finally, Generation 3 came out, and we see that it's shooting 1,650, and like I said, you get up over 1,000 feet per second and you have a pellet that's not going to stay straight after about 30 yards. In fact, while it looks good for 30 yards, beyond that, that thing starts to whirl in the wind. And they brought their bone collector and others on in that 1,300 category behind the 1,650. Now, if you got the 22 caliber instead of the 17, this Magnum dropped to 1,300. And the others dropped to 975. That's decent. So I like lead under 1,000. It stays out to 50, 65, 75 yards on these guns. Those who know me know that I really like a 20-inch barrel if at all possible. That's what the M16 in Vietnam had. I've noticed it with powder guns. You see, a lot of guns have a twist of about 16 to 1. That means it makes one revolution in 16 inches. So it would help if you have a 20-inch barrel. She's getting that football, if you will, spinning even better to make the long distance throw accurate. Well, let's take a look at what these guns have. The barrel length. First of all, you should know there's all kinds of barrels. There's barrels that are choked. There's barrels that are not choked. There's barrels that are tapered. The Gamo guns do not have this at all. They have a straight, smooth barrel. It has rifling, but it's not choked at the end. And that Whisper at the beginning, 19.1 inches. That means when it's not choked, it can easily shoot slugs, and pellets. Because when a gun is choked, oh sure, you can shoot some slugs through it, but you're really going to wear out that rifling at the end, which is smaller, or choked, if you will. But Gamo guns and their barrels are not choked. We get out here into Generation 2, and we see that 19-inch, 19.1, the Maxim, I got this particular gun, came out with a 19.9, that's pretty close to 20. The Bone Collector I also purchased was a 19.9, but that Fusion was 20.5 inches. And the Magnum, in an effort to make this thing as accurate as possible, jumped to 21.3. As we get on over into Generation 3, we see that the barrel lengths were left as they were. But notice that overall, they went from 19.1 up to an inch or two bigger, and that's because longer barrels are more accurate. Let's talk about a warranty. In Generation 1, there was a 1-year warranty on the Whisper, but a 3-year warranty on the Maxim. I think that's all about the fact that they charged an extra $50 for the gun, and they could afford the longer warranty. When we got to Generation 2, the Maxim kept the 3 years. The Bone Collector, I don't know if they didn't like Mr. Waddell or not, but they kept him as a 3-year. But the Fusion and the Magnum picked up 5-year warranties. And so if that's a feature for you, it's kind of nice to know. And they kept those numbers into Generation 3. A lot of numbers were kept on into Generation 3. We have some differences. That Fusion picks up a suppressor on the end and that moderated barrel. The Evo is now a really inexpensive gun, but my goodness, look at these prices down here from $210 up to $320. And just 2 years earlier, we were selling Whispers at they were at $149. The Gamo Swarm air guns was a tremendous advancement for air guns. The fact that it could load itself 10 times versus pushing in 1 pellet at a time was a huge advancement, and Gamo has played it well. And the other two biggies, Crossman and Hatson, have joined the battle, if you will. But when you go out and buy them, I don't work for Gamo or Crossman or Hatson. I want you to know what you're getting and then get the right gun. And I think these guns play an exceptionally good role. And the reason I own several of them is that I consider it a survival gun. I've had times there's no power at this house. There's, who knows, in a case of a war, who knows? These are times that getting air may be scarce. So it's kind of nice to have a gun that creates its own air whenever you're ready to pump it. There were problems with these magazines. This is Generation 1, this is Generation 2. Well, from this angle, they look pretty much the same. But there are some other areas that they do not look like the same. What they both do, however, is have a black band, like a rubber band, and what that does is that when you push these pellets in, that black band, when the pellet is pushed in, goes into the waist of a pellet. And when that wasn't pushed in far enough, and you almost need like a ballpoint pen or something to push it in that extra amount, otherwise it loves to pop out. Now it's supposed to pop on in to that barrel, but it can pop back out. And there were a lot of problems. I had the problem of them popping out. I didn't realize that black band has to fit into the waist of these pellets. I haven't shot slugs out of these guns yet, Some say you shouldn't. But one thing for sure, a slug does not have a waist that these bands can go into. And they've charged a lot of money. Here's a Crosman band. I'm just jumping to the next week deal, but you can see it's completely different. And when it's pushed in right here and wound up, there's no rubber band there, that, at least that I can see. It's more of a mechanical thing. And it'll be interesting to see if it pops out any at all. But it does have a nice method of counting how many pellets that you have. They all do, so that you can take a quick look and see just how many rounds I have left. One of the things that I dislike is when a gun comes with a scope. It's often a cheap scope. And I find myself putting in a good scope. One that lights up early mornings and late evenings with those crosshairs, so that with them now green or red, I'm able to put it right on the critter that I want. But there's a problem with scopes. Look how far back this scope goes on this Gamo. By the way, it's the same problem we have on the Crosman and the Hatson too. These scopes that come with it are short. When you go to replace it with a good scope, it's often long. Look at this one right here, a different Gamo gun, a Maxim, and having a little problem with the scope cover. Once I cock it, yes, I can put it on, but once the barrel's back in place, I cannot. So a few weeks ago, I told you about a supplier I found, because I constantly get questions. What scopes do I buy? Where do I get my scopes? What do you pay for a good scope? Now remember, air guns can cause problems, especially the springers. A springer does a kind of a double whack, and I remember having a springer once in which somewhere around the 100th shot, I put it back and looked down it, and the crosshairs were laying in the bottom of the scope. That's because that spring, when it lets go, can really jar a lot of things. Break-even pistons are a little better, but you still want a good scope on it because it does push one way and one way only. But how do we get the right scope on it? Well, now look at this bone collector that I have. And here is a smaller scope. And this one's very, very easy. In fact, it's quite a scope. I shared with you, I don't know, a month ago, that I had struck a deal with a company called CV, that's Charlie Victor Life, CV Life. And boy, do they have great prices. I bought a couple of their scopes and bipods and all kinds of stuff. And I found some scopes there that were under $100 that had a red dot on them and a laser. And I got in touch with a gal there named Jill Blake, and I said, what can we do for my viewers? Help, I need to get some batteries in that. What can we do for my viewers? A lot of people that do these promotional videos have like a 10% discount. I'm guessing, I don't know, they might take something else under the table. I said, I'm interested in what you can do for our viewers. And they said, we can give a 15% discount. So if this scope was $100, I think it's really $95, but it'd take 15% off, about $15. Instead of it be costing $100, it cost $85. And it has a laser, it has a red dot, and it's a shorter scope. And this is the most expensive one they have. They have just regular scopes like these others here that are shorter. And that's what you want, is that shorter scope. And they're $30, $40, $50, and you still get the 15% off. So when you get a chance, look them up on the internet, CV Life. And you'll get a catalog there, start looking through it. They don't have a lot of items. They probably have about 100 items. And good pictures and good write-ups. And they also have a good write-up on how you sight these scopes in. One of the best I've seen on how you sight it in. And then when you place your order, be sure at the end there where you pay, you let them know you want to use a coupon there, a discount. That's Russ, R-U-S-S, my name, 15. Russ 15. And that'll take a $100 item and make it 85. I'm tickled with what they have. I wish they had binoculars. They don't, but they have these, and I think this winter I'm going to get into some of their night vision stuff too. So take a look at them. Now, be sure that you give us a thumbs if you enjoy the same passion we have with air guns. Write a comment if you got any type of question or concern, or some people just say that was a good video. I like to hear that sometimes. And then subscribe if you want to make sure that you see I think it's really the other half of this, where we discuss the Hatsan Swarm, if I can use that word, and the Crossman. And now you can judge all 5 guns. That discussion gets a little more simpler than this one. And if you have a chance, for $3 or $5, I think you get a couple of these, or 3 of these, 2 of these, and a copy of this Deal Breakers. And make sure you know what your deal breakers are when you order your next air gun. Until then, stay safe, stay sharp, and stay silent.